My name is Azaria, and I am 30 years old. I just found out my sister Jessica is pregnant with her fourth child. For years, I have been the one raising her 3 kids while she lives her best life. When she announced this pregnancy with a huge smile, something inside me finally snapped. I was done being taken advantage of, done sacrificing my life for her poor choices. The decision I made that day changed everything between us forever. She never expected I would stand up for myself, and what happened next shocked us both. If you are watching this video, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I finally took back control of my life after years of being used. To understand why my sister announcing her fourth pregnancy was my breaking point, you need to know our history. I work as a financial consultant at a prestigious firm in Chicago. I have built my career from nothing, working 60-hour weeks to establish myself in a competitive field. Meanwhile, my sister Jessica, who is 32, has never held a job for longer than 6 months. Jessica has always prioritized her romantic relationships over everything else, including her children. She has 3 kids already, each with different fathers. Emma is 7, a sweet, thoughtful girl who loves to read and draw. Liam is 5, energetic and always getting into things. Mason is just 2, still in diapers and completely dependent. The fathers are mostly absent, except for occasional child support payments that Jessica usually spends on herself. Our parents died 4 years ago in a car accident on their way home from celebrating their 30th anniversary. It was sudden and devastating. The inheritance included our childhood home, which was left to me since I had been helping with the mortgage payments for years. With our parents gone, Jessica had nowhere to go, so naturally I offered to let her and the kids move in with me. I thought it would be temporary while she got back on her feet, maybe a few months at most. That few months turned into 4 years. At first I was happy to help. I adore my niece and nephews, and I wanted to give them stability after losing their grandparents. But Jessica took advantage of my generosity from day one. She would go out several nights a week, leaving me to watch the kids. She would take overnight shifts at whatever job she had at the moment, but then quit without notice when it interfered with her social life. I found myself becoming the primary caregiver for 3 children I had never planned on raising. My mornings started at 5:30, making breakfast, packing lunches, getting everyone dressed. I would drop Emma and Liam at school and Mason at daycare before rushing to work. After a full day at the office, I would pick them all up, help with homework, make dinner, give baths, read bedtime stories. Weekends were filled with soccer games, birthday parties, and grocery shopping. My own life was put on indefinite hold. I had to cancel dates, miss work events, and postpone my master's degree. My savings account, once healthy, was constantly drained by the endless expenses of raising 3 children. Daycare for Mason alone cost more than my monthly car payment. My boyfriend David has been incredibly patient. We met 2 years ago at a charity event for my company, and despite the chaos of my home life, he stuck around. He is a software engineer who works from home most days, which gives him some flexibility, but even his patience was wearing thin. Our date nights were constantly canceled when Jessica would text last minute that she needed me to watch the kids. Our vacations were postponed because I could not afford them after paying for school supplies or emergency dental visits. The worst part was that Jessica would constantly promise to change. After every big fight, she would cry and apologize, swearing she would step up and be a better mother. She would do better for a week, maybe 2, then slide right back into her old patterns. She would bring home a new boyfriend, start staying out late, and leave all parental responsibilities to me again. I tried everything to help her become more responsible. I created budgets for her, helped her apply for jobs, even offered to pay for classes so she could get a certification in something. Nothing stuck. She would get excited about a new opportunity, then lose interest as soon as it required actual effort. Meanwhile, I was the one, attending parent-teacher conferences, taking the kids to doctor appointments, and lying awake at night, worrying about their future. My house, once my peaceful sanctuary, became overrun with toys, noise, and chaos. My carefully decorated living room now had crayon on the walls and juice stains on the furniture. I could not remember the last time I had a quiet evening to myself. I loved these children deeply, but I was exhausted, financially drained, and increasingly resentful of my sister, who seemed to view me as nothing more than free childcare. Despite all this, I kept telling myself that family comes first, that these innocent children deserved stability and love, that one day Jessica would finally grow up and take responsibility. I held on to this hope, even as evidence mounted that nothing would change. This was my state of mind on that fateful evening when Jessica came home with her big announcement, and everything finally came to a head. It was a Tuesday, and I had just survived another marathon day. My quarterly financial reports were due at work, so I had been up since 4:30 in the morning to get some uninterrupted time before the kids woke up. After dropping them off at school and daycare, I spent 9 hours at the office only to get a call that Liam had fallen on the playground and needed to be picked up early. I left an important client meeting to get him, then picked up the others, made dinner, helped with homework, and finally got all three bathed and in bed by 8:30. I had just poured myself a glass of wine and sat down for the first time all day when Jessica burst through the front door. She was practically bouncing, her face lit up with excitement. I noticed she was wearing a new dress I had never seen before, probably another purchase she could not afford. "Azaria, I have amazing news," she squealed, dropping her purse on the counter and kicking off her heels. "You are not going to believe this." I took a long sip of my wine. Jessica's version of amazing news was rarely amazing for anyone but her. Last time it was that she had been offered a modeling job that turned out to be a scam. The time before that, it was that she had won $100 on a scratch ticket money she immediately spent on designer sunglasses instead of diapers for Mason. "I am pregnant," she announced, her hands flying to her still flat stomach. "Kyle and I are having a baby." The wine glass froze halfway to my lips. Kyle was Jessica's newest boyfriend, a 35-year-old bartender she had been dating for all of 3 months. He had been to our house exactly twice, and both times he had spent the entire visit on his phone, barely acknowledging the children already in existence. "You are pregnant," I repeated, trying to process this information. "With Kyle, the guy you just started dating." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Do not be such a downer. Kyle is different. He is really excited about the baby. In fact," she continued, her voice rising with enthusiasm, "he is going to move in here next week. We figured it makes the most sense, since you have all this space." My head was spinning. "Wait, what, Jessica? You cannot just decide someone is moving into my house without even asking me. We already have 5 people living in a 3-bedroom home." "Well, Kyle and I will share my room, obviously," she said, as if I was being deliberately obtuse. "And once the baby comes, we thought maybe you could convert your home office into a nursery. You do not really need a whole room just for your computer, right?" I set down my wine glass with a deliberate motion, trying to contain the anger building inside me. "Jessica, this is my house. I work from home 2 days a week. I need my office." "But where is the baby supposed to sleep?" she countered, her tone becoming whiny. "And actually, I was hoping you could maybe cut back your hours at work after the baby comes. I am going to need a lot more help, especially in the beginning. That was when I felt something inside me crack. Cut back my hours, Jessica. I am already working myself to exhaustion supporting you and your 3 children. I cannot afford to work less, and I certainly cannot afford another child. Jessica's expression darkened. They are your niece and nephews, Azaria. Not some random kids. Family helps family. Mom and Dad would be so disappointed in how selfish you are being right now. The mention of our parents was a low blow, and Jessica knew it. Do not bring them into this, I said, my voice shaking. Dad would have expected you to support your own children. Mom would have wanted you to be responsible. I am being responsible, Jessica shot back. I am keeping this baby and creating a family with Kyle. You should be happy for me instead of making this all about yourself. Happy, Jessica? You can barely take care of the 3 children you already have. I am the one who makes sure they are fed, clothed, and get to school on time. I am the one who pays for everything. And now you want to add another baby to the mix, and a boyfriend I barely know living in my house. Jessica's face contorted with anger. This is so typical of you, always thinking you are better than me because you have some fancy job. Just because you cannot find someone who wants to have kids with you does not mean you should rain on my parade. I felt like I had been slapped. My inability to find a stable relationship had a lot to do with the fact that I spent all my time raising her children. Before I could respond, Jessica stormed out of the room, pulling her phone from her purse. From the hallway, I could hear her talking to Kyle. Hey, babe, yes, I told her. She is so excited for us. Cannot wait for you to move in. This is going to be perfect. I sat there in stunned silence, my untouched wine forgotten as the full weight of what was happening settled over me. Jessica was not just announcing a pregnancy, she was announcing that my life as I knew it was over. Another child to raise, another mouth to feed, and now a strange man living in my home. As I listened to her cheerfully lie about my reaction, something hardened inside me. This could not continue. Something had to change. True to her word, Kyle moved in exactly 9 days later. I came home from work to find his motorcycle parked in my driveway and boxes of his belongings stacked in my living room. Jessica had given him a key without telling me, and he had spent the day moving in while I was at the office. When I walked through the door, he was sprawled on my couch, beer in hand, playing video games on the television I had paid for. Hey, he said, without looking up. Jessica said the room at the end of the hall is ours, right? I stood there, briefcase still in hand, completely blindsided. I had thought Jessica and I would at least discuss this further before he actually moved in. I had planned to set some ground rules, maybe even draw up a rental agreement. Instead, I was being informed of arrangements already made in my own home. Kyle turned out to be even worse than I had feared. He did not have a job, having quit the bartending position the day after learning about the pregnancy. Bartending is not really a family man's job, he explained when I asked. Too many late nights. Instead, he claimed to be working on a business plan for a sports app that would definitely be worth millions. But mostly, he just played video games all day. Jessica's morning sickness hit hard in her 6th week. Suddenly, she could not drive the kids to school because she felt nauseated in the car. She could not make dinner because the smell of food made her sick. She could not do laundry because bending over triggered her nausea. Every single responsibility that she occasionally helped with now fell entirely to me. My daily routine became a nightmare of logistics and exhaustion. My alarm went off at 5 in the morning, giving me an hour to shower, dress, and prepare for the day before waking the kids at 6. I would make breakfast for 5 people, pack 3 lunches, and make sure everyone had clean clothes. Emma needed her hair braided for dance class. Liam could not find his favorite dinosaur shirt. Mason still needed help with everything from brushing his teeth to putting on his shoes. By 7:30, I needed to have everyone in the car to make the school run. Drop Emma at elementary school by 7:45, Liam at kindergarten by 8, and Mason at daycare by 8:15. Then rush through morning traffic to make it to my office by 9, already exhausted before my workday even began. Lunchtime was spent calling doctors for Jessica's prenatal appointments, scheduling the kids' checkups, or ordering groceries online. After work, I would do the pickup run in reverse, then come home to make dinner for everyone. Kyle would complain if I made anything healthy. Jessica would complain if I made anything with a strong smell, and the kids each had their own list of foods they refused to eat. After dinner came homework help for Emma playtime with Liam and bedtime routines for all three. By the time I got them all settled, it would be close to 9 at night. Then I would clean the kitchen, start a load of laundry, and try to catch up on work emails before falling into bed around midnight, only to do it all again the next day. David and I had planned a weekend getaway to Michigan for months, a chance to reconnect and have some time alone. 3 days before we were supposed to leave, Jessica announced that she and Kyle had tickets to a concert Saturday night. "You will be here to watch the kids, right?" she asked, though it was clearly not a question. When I reminded her about my plans, she looked genuinely confused. "But we already bought the tickets. They are non-refundable. And Kyle has been so stressed lately, he really needs a night out." I canceled the trip. David was understanding but distant on the phone. "This is not sustainable, Azaria," he said quietly. "I love you, but I feel like I am in a relationship with your entire family, not just you." 2 weeks later, Emma woke up with a high fever and stomach pain. The school nurse called me during a critical client presentation. I apologized to the room full of executives and rushed out to pick her up. After 3 hours in urgent care, it turned out to be strep throat. I tried calling Jessica repeatedly, but her phone went straight to voicemail. When we finally got home, I found a note on the counter. "Went shopping for baby things with Kyle. Back later, Jess." Emma was miserable and clingy, wanting only to be held. I sat on the couch with her burning forehead against my neck, scrolling through work emails on my phone while simultaneously ordering dinner delivery since I could not cook. When Jessica and Kyle finally returned 6 hours later, they were laden with shopping bags from expensive baby boutiques. Jessica barely glanced at her sick daughter before launching into an excited monologue about the crib they had put on layaway. The next day, my boss called me into her office. "Azaria, you are one of our most valuable team members," she began. "But lately your performance has been suffering. The Westbrook presentation yesterday was a major opportunity, and you left in the middle of it." "I am sorry," I said, my stomach churning with anxiety. My niece was sick, and I had to pick her up from school. My boss's expression softened slightly. "I understand family emergencies happen, but this is the 3rd client meeting you have had to leave in the past month, and your reports have been coming in late. We need to know if there is a more permanent issue affecting your work." I assured her it was temporary, that things would improve, but as I walked back to my desk, I wondered if that was true. Would things ever improve? Or would I keep sacrificing my career, my relationship, my entire life, to care for a growing brood of children that were not even mine? That night, I opened the refrigerator to find it nearly empty. I had ordered groceries 2 days earlier, spending $300 on food that should have lasted the week. Now all that remained were some condiments and a half-empty carton of milk. When I asked what happened, Kyle shrugged. "I had some friends over while you were at work. We got hungry." I tried to talk to Jessica about Kyle's behavior, about the need for them to contribute financially, about the strain all of this was putting on me. She listened with a bored expression, one hand absently rubbing her still flat stomach. When I finished, she sighed dramatically. You always do this, Azaria. Make everything so complicated. We are family. We help each other. When the baby comes, you will fall in love with him or her, just like you did with the others, and all this complaining will seem silly. That night, I lay awake until 3 in the morning, listening to the sound of Kyle playing video games in the living room, the volume too loud. David had stopped calling every day, now checking in just a few times a week. My savings account was nearly depleted. My performance review was coming up, and I feared I would lose the promotion I had been working toward for years. Something had to give, but I felt trapped in a situation entirely of Jessica's making, with no clear way out. My 30th birthday arrived on a rainy Thursday. I had mentioned it casually to Jessica a few times, hoping she might remember and perhaps offer to watch the kids so I could go out with David. Instead, she spent the entire week planning Liam's upcoming birthday party, even though it was still 3 weeks away. We need to book the bouncy castle place now, she insisted, shoving a brochure in my face as I tried to get ready for work. And I want to do custom invitations. Can you order them today? Oh, and we should get a professional cake. The one from last year was so boring. Last year's cake had been homemade by me at midnight after a full day of work because Jessica had forgotten to order one. I had spent hours decorating it with dinosaurs because Liam was obsessed with them. The memory of his delighted face had made the effort worthwhile, but Jessica's dismissal of it stung. My birthday is this Thursday, I reminded her. I thought maybe we could do something small. Maybe I could go out with David after the kids are in bed. Jessica barely looked up from the brochure. Oh, right. Happy early birthday. But Thursday is not good for me. Kyle and I have couples massage appointments. We won't be back until late. I bit my tongue and went to work. No one there remembered my birthday either, too caught up in the chaos of quarterly reports. David texted me a sweet message and promised to take me to dinner on the weekend. After work, I stopped at a bakery and bought myself a small chocolate cake. It was pathetic, buying my own birthday cake, but I wanted something to mark the occasion. When I got home, I put the cake in the refrigerator and started making dinner. We ate, I helped with homework, bathed the kids, and put them to bed. By the time I finished, it was after 9, and I was exhausted, but determined to at least enjoy my cake. I opened the refrigerator to find an empty cake box, a few crumbs, the only evidence it had ever existed. I found Jessica and Kyle in the living room watching a movie. Did you eat my cake? I asked, holding the empty box. Kyle glanced up. Oh, was that yours? Sorry we got hungry. That was my birthday cake, I said, my voice tight. I bought it for myself because no one else remembered my birthday. Jessica rolled her eyes. Do not be so dramatic. It is just cake. We will get you another one tomorrow. Something inside me snapped. All the months of resentment, exhaustion, and frustration boiled over at once. It is not just about the cake, Jessica. It is about the fact that you take and take and take, and you never give anything back. You live in my house rent-free. I raise your children. I pay for everything. And you could not even leave me one small cake on my birthday. Jessica sat up, her expression hardening. Here we go again with the martyr act. No one asked you to do all that. You offered. I offered temporary help 4 years ago. Not to become a permanent parent to your children, while you do whatever you want. They are your family too, Jessica snapped. You owe them. You owe me. Mom and Dad would have wanted you to help me. Help you, yes. Enable you, no. There is a difference. Jessica stood up, one hand protectively over her stomach, though she was barely showing. You know what? You are just jealous. Jealous that I have children and you do not. Jealous that I found someone who loves me. If you keep acting like this, I will not let you see the kids anymore. How would you like that? Since you complain about them so much, maybe you should not be around them at all. Her threat to keep the children from me was like a physical blow. Despite everything, I loved Emma, Liam, and Mason deeply. The thought of not seeing them tore at my heart. Jessica saw my expression and smiled, knowing she had found my weakness. That weekend, David suggested again that I move in with him. This situation is toxic, Azaria. Jessica is manipulating you. You can still be part of the kids' lives without sacrificing everything. I wanted to say yes, but guilt held me back. What about the kids? They depend on me. If I leave, who will take care of them properly? Maybe if you stop doing everything, Jessica will finally step up, David suggested. Sometimes helping means stepping back. I was considering his words when I overheard Jessica and Kyle talking in the kitchen late one night. I had gotten up for a glass of water and stopped when I heard my name. Azaria is such a pushover, Kyle was saying with a laugh. Cannot believe she actually canceled her trip to watch the kids for us. I know, Jessica giggled. She will do anything if I mention the kids. So easy to control. Think she will pay for the crib? Kyle asked. Definitely. I will just tell her it is for the baby's safety or something. Works every time. I stood frozen in the hallway, their words confirming my worst fears. Jessica was not just irresponsible. She was deliberately manipulating me, using the children I loved as pawns. And worse, laughing about it with Kyle. The next morning, Jessica cornered me before work. So, I have been thinking about my baby shower, she began. I want to do it at that new event space downtown. It is a little pricey, but since you are the host. I never agreed to host your shower, I interrupted. Jessica blinked momentarily, thrown off script. Well, obviously you are hosting it. You are my sister. Who else would do it? Maybe one of your friends, or Kyle's family. Jessica waved dismissively. None of them have a big enough house or enough money. Besides, you are good at organizing things. Jessica, I cannot afford an expensive shower right now, between the kids' expenses and everything else. Just put it on your credit card, she said impatiently. It is not like it is that much. Only about $2,000 for the venue plus food and decorations. $2,000, I repeated incredulously. Jessica, that is insane. Well, if you do not want to support me and your future niece or nephew, just say so. She sniffed, eyes immediately filling with tears. I guess family means nothing to you. I was late for work that day, my mind spinning with anger and resentment. That night I could not sleep, staring at the ceiling as anxiety gnawed at me. The next morning I was so exhausted, I forgot about an important client call. My boss noticed, of course. The stress was affecting my health, too. I had developed persistent headaches, and my hair was starting to fall out in clumps. The company's mental health counselor suggested I make an appointment. During our session, she listened to my situation and asked gently, what would happen if you set some boundaries with your sister? She would get angry, I said immediately. She might keep the kids from me. And what is happening to you now, without those boundaries? I considered the question. I am falling apart. My job is at risk. My relationship is suffering. I am constantly anxious and exhausted. Sometimes, the counselor said, we have to risk short-term pain for long-term health, both for ourselves and for those we care about. Her words stayed with me, but I still hesitated to act. Then came the incident with my mother's necklace. It was a delicate gold pendant with a small diamond. Nothing extravagant, but deeply sentimental. My mother had worn it every day, and it was one of the few items I had kept of hers after the accident. I noticed it was missing from my jewelry box while getting ready for a rare dinner out with David. After searching frantically, I asked Jessica if she had seen it. "Oh, that old thing," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I might have borrowed it a while ago. I will look for it." But something in her tone made me suspicious. After more pressing, Kyle finally admitted the truth while Jessica was out. She sold it to some pawn shop. We needed money for the baby, and she said you would not mind. It was just gathering dust anyway. The loss of my mother's necklace, so casually discarded for quick cash, was the wound that would not heal. Each time I thought of it, fresh anger surged through me. Jessica promised to get it back, but conveniently never got around to it. It became a symbol of everything wrong in our relationship, everything I had lost while trying to help her. The stage was set for the final confrontation, the moment when everything would change. The breaking point came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I had been up since 4:30, working on a presentation using my laptop at the kitchen table since my office had been gradually taken over by baby items Jessica was collecting. I had finally finished around 6, giving me just enough time to get ready before waking the kids. When I returned to the kitchen, I found Kyle rummaging through the refrigerator. He had a cup of coffee balanced precariously on my closed laptop. As I watched in horror, he bumped the table, and the coffee spilled, pouring directly onto my computer. "Oh, damn," he said, making a half-hearted swipe with a paper towel. "That sucks." I rushed over, moving the laptop and trying to dry it, but it was too late. The screen went black, and no amount of frantic button pressing would revive it. My entire presentation due that morning was gone, along with countless work files that had not been backed up. "Kyle, do you have any idea what you just did?" I asked, my voice shaking. "This is my work computer. I have a presentation in 3 hours. He shrugged. "Just tell them your computer broke. They will understand." No, they will not understand. This is completely unprofessional. I could lose my job over this. Kyle rolled his eyes. "You are always so dramatic. It is just a computer." I was about to respond when Jessica walked in, yawning. "What is all the yelling about? I am trying to sleep. The baby needs rest." "Kyle just spilled coffee all over my work laptop and destroyed it," I explained, still holding the dripping computer. "I have lost everything." Instead of being concerned, Jessica looked annoyed. "Well, accidents happen. No need to freak out about it." "This is not just an accident, Jessica. This is my livelihood. I cannot afford to replace this laptop, and I certainly cannot afford to lose my job, which might happen if I miss this presentation." Jessica's expression hardened. "Maybe if you were not always working, this would not have happened. Family should come first, Azaria. This is my children's home too, and they should not have to tiptoe around because you are obsessed with your job." That was it, the final straw. Their home. This is my home, Jessica. My name is on the deed. I pay the mortgage. I pay the bills. You and Kyle contribute nothing. "We are family," Jessica shouted. "That means sharing what we have. Besides, I am the one with children. I need this house more than you do." In that moment, something crystallized inside me. A decision I had been avoiding for far too long. "No, Jessica. This stops now. I cannot do this anymore." I walked past her and Kyle straight to my bedroom and pulled out my suitcase. I began throwing clothes inside, not bothering to fold them. Jessica followed me, her expression changing from anger to alarm. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "I am leaving," I said simply. "I am going to stay with David." "You cannot leave. What about the kids? What about me? I am pregnant." I continued packing. "You are their mother, Jessica. It is time you started acting like it. But where will we live? How will we pay for things? That is not my problem anymore, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. You and Kyle are adults. Figure it out. Jessica's face contorted with rage. You selfish bitch, after everything I have done for you. I stopped and stared at her. Everything you have done for me. What exactly have you done for me, Jessica? Name one thing. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to come up with an answer. I zipped my suitcase and grabbed my purse. I will be back for the rest of my things later. You have 30 days to find another place to live. You cannot kick us out, Jessica shrieked. We have nowhere to go. I am not kicking you out today. I am giving you notice, which is more than you deserve. Figure it out. Sell some of those expensive baby boutique items. Ask Kyle to get a job. Do whatever adults do when they need money. I walked out of my bedroom to find the 3 children standing in the hallway looking scared. My heart broke seeing their confused faces. I knelt down to their level. Auntie has to go away for a little while, I explained gently. But I love you very much, and I will see you soon. Emma, always, the sensitive one, began to cry. Are you leaving because of us? Because I did not clean my room. No, sweetheart, I assured her, pulling her into a hug. This has nothing to do with you. Sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. I hugged each of them, promising to call soon, then walked out the front door. As I put my suitcase in the trunk of my car, I saw Jessica on the phone through the living room window, gesturing wildly. I assumed she was calling Kyle, who had left shortly after our argument. I drove to David's apartment, tears finally coming once I was alone in the car. By the time I arrived, I had pulled myself together enough to explain what had happened. David was supportive, helping me bring in my suitcase and making me tea, while I called my boss to explain the situation with my laptop. 3 hours later, there was a knock at David's door. When he opened it, 2 police officers stood in the hallway. Are you Azaria Mitchell? One of them asked, when I appeared behind David. Yes, I replied, confusion turning to dread. Is something wrong? We received a report of a domestic disturbance at your residence this morning, the officer explained. Your sister Jessica called, stating that you threatened her and her children before leaving with items that did not belong to you. I was stunned. That is completely false. I never threatened anyone, and everything I took belongs to me. The officers asked to see inside my suitcase, which I allowed. There was nothing there but my own clothing and personal items. They took statements from both David and me about what had actually happened. Unfortunately, we have to follow up on all reports, the officer explained, looking somewhat apologetic, especially when children are involved. After they left, my phone exploded with notifications. Jessica had apparently been busy. She had called our extended family, telling them I had abandoned her and the children without warning. She had posted on social media that I had stolen money from her, threatened her while she was pregnant, and endangered her children. She claimed I had taken family heirlooms that rightfully belonged to her children. Friends I had not spoken to in months were texting me, asking what was going on. My aunt called, berating me for abandoning my pregnant sister. Even my boss received an email from Jessica claiming I was having a mental breakdown and making up stories about my family. The worst was the phone call from Emma that evening. Jessica had apparently given her 7-year-old daughter the phone and encouraged her to call me. Auntie Azaria, she sobbed. Mommy says you do not love us anymore. She says you ran away because you hate us. Is that true? I tried to reassure her through my own tears. No, sweetheart. I love you, Liam, and Mason, very much. I just need some time away from the grown-ups. I will see you soon. I promise. But Mommy says we might have to live in our car because you are being mean. Emma continued, clearly repeating what Jessica had told her. She says you want us to be homeless. It took everything in me not to immediately drive back there. Jessica was using the children to manipulate me again, but this time I recognized it for what it was. I gently explained to Emma that her mommy was upset and saying things that were not true and that everything would be okay. After hanging up, I was shaking with anger. She is using her own children to guilt me, I told David, scaring them on purpose. That is why you needed to leave, he reminded me. This manipulation will never stop unless you hold firm. Around midnight, the final act in Jessica's drama played out. A pounding on David's door woke us both. When we looked through the peephole, we saw Jessica and Kyle in the hallway. "Open up, you selfish bitch!" Jessica was screaming, clearly intoxicated. "You cannot just abandon your family." Kyle was swaying on his feet, alternating between pounding on the door and leaning against the wall. "Come out and face us, coward," he slurred. David called the building security, who called the police when Jessica and Kyle refused to leave. They were escorted out of the building, but not before Jessica had created a scene in front of David's neighbors, screaming that I had stolen her children's inheritance and left them to starve. As I lay awake that night, listening to David's steady breathing beside me, I realized that this was only the beginning. Jessica would not give up easily. She had spent years using me as her safety net, and she would fight dirty to maintain that arrangement. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something other than exhaustion and resentment. I felt resolve. This had to end for my sake, and ultimately, for the children I loved. The next morning, I would begin the difficult process of truly standing up for myself. The morning after Jessica's drunken scene at David's apartment, I made an appointment with a family law attorney. I had never imagined needing legal help to deal with my own sister, but Jessica's false police report had shown me how far she was willing to go. The attorney, a kind but no-nonsense woman named Carol Rodriguez, listened to my entire story without interruption. When I finished, she nodded thoughtfully. "This is unfortunately quite common in family situations," she explained. "You have been enabling your sister for years, and now that you are setting boundaries, she is escalating to maintain control." "What can I do?" I asked. "The house is in my name, but I do not want to just throw them out on the street. There are children involved." "You have been more than generous," Carol assured me, "but generosity without boundaries is not sustainable. Here is what we will do." Under Carol's guidance, I drafted a formal notice giving Jessica and Kyle 30 days to either vacate the property or begin paying market-rate rent. I also requested a walkthrough of the house to document its current condition and take inventory of my belongings. When I returned to the house with David and the attorney, we discovered that Jessica and Kyle had not paid any utility bills for months, despite my giving Jessica money specifically for that purpose. The electricity was about to be shut off, and the water bill was severely delinquent. I paid them immediately to prevent disruption to the children's lives, but documented everything. Inside the house was in shocking disarray. Walls had been damaged, carpets stained, and several valuable items were missing, including electronics and jewelry. I took photos of everything, creating a detailed record of the damage. Jessica was not home during our inspection, having conveniently taken the children to the park. Kyle was there sulking on the couch and refusing to answer questions. When I checked my home office, I found it had been completely taken over my desk, pushed into a corner to make room for baby furniture. My files had been dumped into boxes and shoved into the closet. "This is worse than I expected," I admitted to David as we left. "I do not know if the house will ever be the same." "Houses can be repaired," he reminded me gently. "Your well-being is what matters now." The next phase of Jessica's campaign against me targeted my professional reputation. She began calling my colleagues and clients, telling them I was having a mental breakdown. She even showed up at my office once visibly pregnant and tearful, creating a scene in the lobby about how I had abandoned my family in their time of need. Fortunately, my boss had seen enough of Jessica's behavior over the years to recognize the manipulation. "Take whatever time you need to sort this out," she told me after the lobby incident. "We know who you are and the quality of your work." Jessica's social media attacks intensified. She posted daily updates about how I had left her destitute, how the children cried for me every night, how she feared for her unborn baby's health due to the stress I was causing. Mutual friends began taking sides, with many believing Jessica's version of events. Through it all, I maintained my resolve. I continued working from David's apartment, putting aside money that previously would have gone to supporting Jessica's household. I documented every text, every email, every social media post that contained false accusations. The most painful part was being separated from the children. Jessica initially refused to let me see them, using them as leverage. "If you want to see the kids, you need to come home and stop this nonsense," she would say when I called. I missed them terribly, but I knew giving in would only perpetuate the cycle. Instead, I sent them cards and small gifts, letting them know I was thinking of them. I asked about their school and activities when Jessica would allow me to speak to them briefly on the phone. About 2 weeks after I left, I received a call from Child Protective Services. A caseworker explained that an anonymous report had been filed, expressing concern about the children's living conditions. Given Jessica's recent behavior, I strongly suspected the report came from a neighbor who had witnessed the chaos firsthand. The CPS visit was a wake-up call for Jessica. The caseworker found the house in disarray, little food in the refrigerator, and Kyle passed out on the couch at 2 in the afternoon with empty beer cans surrounding him. While no immediate action was taken, a follow-up visit was scheduled, and Jessica was given specific requirements to improve the living conditions. Around the same time, I decided to reach out to the fathers of Jessica's older children. I had always maintained cordial relationships with them for the sake of the kids, though Jessica had often tried to paint them as villains who had abandoned her. Mark, Emma's father, was now married with a stable job in manufacturing. He had been fighting for more visitation with Emma for years, but Jessica had made it nearly impossible. Jason, Liam's father, had similar stories of Jessica's interference with his relationship with his son. Both men were shocked to learn the full extent of the situation and expressed interest in taking a more active role in their children's lives. As the 30-day notice period drew to a close, Jessica finally called me without screaming or making accusations. Her voice was subdued, almost defeated. "The electricity company says they are going to shut off the power tomorrow," she said. "I do not have the money to pay the bill." "I thought Kyle was working on his $1 million app idea," I replied, unable to keep the sarcasm from my voice. "Kyle left," she said, after a pause. "He said this was too much drama," he said. Her voice broke. "He said he is not even sure the baby is his." Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. Jessica had been abandoned yet again by a man she had pinned her hopes on. But I reminded myself that her choices had led to this situation. "I can pay the electricity bill this one last time," I offered. "But Jessica, you need to figure out a long-term solution. You cannot stay in my house without contributing." "I know," she said quietly. "I have been looking at apartments, but everything is so expensive, and no one wants to rent to a single pregnant woman with 3 kids." "What about your parents?" I suggested. Kyle's family had been noticeably absent throughout the entire situation. "They said I made my bed, and now I have to lie in it," Jessica admitted. They told me I should have listened to you years ago." It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of her behavior that I had ever heard from her. After our call, I consulted with Carol again, and we drafted a more formal agreement. Jessica could remain in the house for 3 more months, giving her time to find suitable accommodation and employment. In exchange, she would allow me regular visitation with the children and agree to family counseling. 2 days later, we met at a neutral location, a coffee shop, halfway between David's apartment and my house. Jessica looked tired, her pregnancy now clearly visible. She signed the agreement without the drama I had expected. "The kids miss you," she said as we were leaving. "Especially Emma. She keeps asking when you are coming home." "I miss them too," I replied honestly. "And I want to be part of their lives. But things have to change, Jessica, for all our sakes." She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "I know. I do not know how to do this on my own." "You are not on your own," I told her. "Mark and Jason want to be more involved with their kids. And I will help you, but not by doing everything for you anymore." Over the next several months, things began to stabilize. With the threat of losing her housing completely, Jessica finally found a part-time job at a daycare center that allowed her to bring Mason with her. Mark and Jason increased their visitation with Emma and Liam, providing Jessica with more free time and the children with more stability. The family counseling sessions were difficult but necessary. Jessica initially tried to portray herself as the victim, but the therapist gently redirected her to take responsibility for her choices. Slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild our relationship on more solid ground. 3 months turned into 6. Jessica found a small 2-bedroom apartment that she could afford with her new job and the more consistent child support from Mark and Jason. Kyle occasionally resurfaced with promises to help, only to disappear again when actual responsibility was required. I returned to my house after Jessica moved out, shocked by the extent of the damage. It took weeks of cleaning, repairing, and repainting to make it feel like home again. Some things were permanently stained or broken, but as David had said, houses can be repaired. More importantly, I had reclaimed my life. My work performance improved, and I received the promotion I had been working toward. David and I had the time and space to strengthen our relationship, eventually getting engaged on a weekend trip to Michigan that we had been able to take without last-minute cancellations. The journey had been painful, but necessary. By standing firm against Jessica's manipulation, I had not only saved myself, but ultimately helped her begin to grow up and take responsibility for her own life and children. It was not the happy family situation I had always imagined, but it was honest, and for the first time in years it was sustainable. 6 months after Jessica moved into her own apartment, I sat on a park bench watching Emma and Liam play on the swings. Mason was toddling around the sandbox, proudly showing me each rock and stick he discovered. Jessica sat beside me, her new daughter Sophia asleep in a stroller beside her. "Thank you for taking them this weekend," Jessica said, adjusting Sophia's blanket. "The extra shifts at work will really help with next month's rent." "I am happy to have them," I replied honestly. "It is different now being Aunt Azaria, who takes them for fun weekends rather than the default parent." Jessica nodded, a flash of shame crossing her face before she composed herself. "They look forward to it all week. Emma has been talking about the Science Museum non-stop." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the children play. So much had changed in half a year. Jessica had given birth to Sophia 3 months earlier with me in the delivery room as her support person. Kyle had shown up at the hospital, made grand promises about being involved, then disappeared again within a week. This time Jessica had not seemed surprised or even particularly disappointed. "I got a raise at work," she mentioned casually. Not much, but enough that I can start putting a little aside each month. The director says I have potential to become a lead teacher eventually. That is great, Jess, I said, genuinely happy for her. You are good with the kids there. I never thought I would like working with other people's children, she admitted. But it turns out I am actually pretty good at it. And the regular hours mean I can be home with my own kids in the evenings. The journey to this point had not been easy. After moving out, Jessica had initially continued her campaign against me, telling anyone who would listen how I had abandoned her. But reality had quickly set in. Without me handling everything, she had been forced to learn basic adult skills like budgeting, meal planning, and time management. There had been many tearful phone calls in those early days. Calls about broken appliances, sick children, and empty bank accounts. Each time, instead of rushing in to fix everything, I had offered advice and encouragement. "You can handle this," became my mantra. And slowly she began to believe it. The first major breakthrough came when Emma got sick with the flu and Jessica managed the entire situation herself. She called the doctor, got the prescription, rearranged her work schedule, and nursed Emma back to health without once asking me to take over. The pride in her voice when she told me about it was something I had never heard before. For my part, the healing had been equally challenging. I had spent so many years defining myself by what I did for Jessica and the children that I struggled to rediscover who I was without that role. What did Azaria want? What made Azaria happy? These were questions I had not considered in so long that the answers did not come easily. David had been my rock throughout the process. He celebrated small victories with me and held me during moments of doubt. When I worried about the children, he reminded me that they were resilient and that having a mother who was finally growing up would benefit them far more than having an aunt who enabled their mother's immaturity. Our engagement had been another step in reclaiming my life. For the first time, I was planning a future based on what I wanted, not on what Jessica needed from me. We had set a date for the following spring, and Emma would be our flower girl. My relationship with the children had evolved as well. Instead of being the exhausted caregiver responsible for every aspect of their lives, I was now the fun aunt who took them on special outings and helped with homework. Our time together was more meaningful because it was chosen rather than obligatory. "I am sorry," Jessica said, suddenly breaking into my thoughts. "For everything. For taking advantage of you for so long. For not appreciating everything you did. For the things I said and did when you finally stood up for yourself." I turned to look at her, surprised by the unprompted apology. "Thank you for saying that." "I mean it," she insisted. "I was thinking about it last night after the kids were in bed. I do not think I ever would have grown up if you had kept taking care of everything. It was easier to let you do it all than to face my own failures." "We both made mistakes," I acknowledged. "I enabled your behavior because it was easier than confronting you. I told myself I was helping, but in some ways I was just avoiding conflict." "Still," Jessica said, watching as Mason triumphantly held up a particularly interesting rock, "you did not deserve how I treated you, especially calling the police and telling the kids those things. That was unforgivable." "But not unforgiven," I replied softly. "We are family, Jess. That does not mean you get to take advantage of me. But it does mean I will always care about what happens to you and the kids." Jessica wiped away a tear. "The therapist says I use the idea of family as a weapon, that real family supports each other in healthy ways, not by creating dependency." She is right, I agreed. I think we are finally learning what that looks like. As we gathered the children to leave, Emma slipped her small hand into mine. "Auntie Azaria, are you happy now?" she asked, with the directness only children can manage. I knelt down to her level. "I am very happy, sweetheart. Are you?" She nodded, solemnly. "Mommy is home more now, and she does not cry as much. And I like that we get to have special days with just you. Children see more than we give them credit for." Emma had recognized the positive changes in our family dynamic, even if she could not articulate exactly what had happened. That night, after the children had gone home with Jessica David, and I sat on our patio watching the sunset. "You seem peaceful," he observed, taking my hand. "I am," I realized. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. The journey from resentment to peace had been long and difficult. There had been moments when the guilt was overwhelming, when I questioned whether I had done the right thing. But seeing Jessica slowly becoming the mother her children deserved, watching the kids thrive with more stability and consistency, and reclaiming my own life and happiness, confirmed that sometimes the hardest choice is the right one. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary. True love sometimes means stepping back and allowing others to face the consequences of their actions. By enabling Jessica's behavior for so long, I had been preventing her growth rather than supporting it. I had also learned that helping does not mean sacrificing yourself entirely. There is a balance between generosity and self-preservation that I had never understood before. Now I knew that I could be there for Jessica and the children without losing myself in the process. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, I thought about how far we had all come. Jessica was taking steps toward independence and responsibility. The children were more secure with clear boundaries and expectations. And I was rediscovering who I was beyond my role as everyone's caretaker. The road ahead would not always be smooth. Jessica would face more challenges, and there would be times when she would slip back into old patterns. But the foundation had been laid for a healthier relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than dependency and manipulation. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your generosity was taken for granted? How did you learn to set boundaries with people you love? Sometimes the hardest part of caring for others is knowing when to step back and let them stand on their own. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding balance in difficult family dynamics. Share your own experiences in the comments below, and remember that taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is necessary for truly being there for the people you love. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in your own journey toward healthy relationships.